Welcome, this video is all about corrupting Fever Champion. Dealing physical damage over time was historically a domain of the Gladiator Ascendancy, but as of lately, it's simply not worth choosing it over a much more tanky champion. You can still obtain one good keystone via a pair of forbidden jewels while keeping all the benefits of champion's durability. You still want to pick a class that has easy access to the left part of the outermost ring, as there is a lot of maximum life, armor, physical damage over time nodes, and the resolute technique keystone. The type of physical dot you'll deal is not bleeding but corrupted blood from corrupting fever skill. You can stack the corrupted blood up to 10 times on an enemy, each stack lasting 6 seconds. The corrupting fever buff on you will refresh with each kill, so you won't have to constantly cast it. It's a relatively weak build in terms of single target damage, not really supposed to kill uber bosses. You won't need mana. All the skills are supposed to cost life, or be linked to life tap support, so that's one less of an issue. There aren't many nodes on a skill tree dedicated to physical damage over time that isn't bleeding, so we recommend using multiple cluster jewels to expand the build's potential. To apply the damaging debuff, you will need an actual skill that hits. Use Reap and Vaal Reap to kill bosses, but for clearing choose Kinetic Blast. The build uses a wand instead of a bow, so Kinetic Blast is as good of a skill as you can get. The new Vaal Reap is a powerful tool against stationary enemies. You will have a lot of maximum life. It's actually necessary to even activate the Corrupting Fever skill, which, having its cost severely reduced, will still cost 5,000 maximum life if linked to a life tap, maybe more. Other layers of defenses are Champion's Keystones, Fortify, and a lot of armor, close to 100,000. Clear Speed is excellent, one of the best in the game with the gratuitous violence. Single target damage is bad, but the new Vaal Reap helps with that a bit. The build is extremely cheap, it's a league starter. No uniques are mandatory, you can play this build with rare gear only. There are however some options that would enhance your clear speed or even alter the build completely. The build is supposed to be cheap, so we won't recommend any obvious and expensive upgrades like ashes. It will be extremely hard to reach even 1 million DPS with the Poet's Pen, but it's still a good option due to how it increases your clear speed. It also completely changes your gem setups, making you rely mostly on Corrupting Fever for damage. Safal's Frame gets you the extra maximum elemental resistances, which normally bottlenecks your survivability. Spell block chance is good too. Skin of the Lords is the best option for more damage. It grants no life, which is really bad for your character's survivability, but increases the gem level of its setup, which is really good for your character's damage. Hemophilia Gloves increase damage over time and explode bleeding enemies on kill. Your chance to cause bleeding is high due to these gloves and vulnerability curse, it's 50% with these alone. You can also easily find a corrupted pair with this curse applied with each hit. From a pair of forbidden jewels get gratuitous violence, as it simply grants you 20% more damage and makes enemies you kill explode. Headsman is good too. Your auras are Pride, Determination, and Malevolence. Get the Malevolence mod for an increased dot multiplier on your Watcher's Eye. Getting maximum life is usually a priority, but here it is more so, as you need a lot of it to activate Corrupting Fever. The higher level of this skill gem, the more life it costs. Prioritize skill gem level of the main damaging abilities, damage over time, and dot multiplier. You already have tons of armor and maximum life, so the next best defensive layers are Chaos Resistance, Maximum Elemental Resistances, and Spell Suppression. There are barely any good exotic modifiers on a helmet, just get the most basic ones like Maximum Life and Resistances. If you're using a base with Evasion or ES, you may also find Dexterity and Intelligence. The wand should increase your gem levels of relevant skills by 1 or even 2, and have some mods for physical damage over time. Attack speed, spell damage, and cast speed are not that important. Get tons of maximum life, resistances, and maximum elemental resistances on a shield. Attributes, Chaos Resistance, Armor, Block Chance, Spell Suppression Chance, and Reservation Efficiency are good too. Regular body armor with as much maximum life as you can afford is the best option. Get here some armor, resistances, and maybe spell suppression. A lot of maximum life, elemental resistances, and increased movement speed should be found on your boots. Attributes and spell suppression are welcome. Apothecary gloves are probably the best base. Here you can look for damage over time modifiers or other basic defensive additions already mentioned. On a belt, there's just maximum life that's the most important. Increased global physical damage is an Elder's prefix. An amulet could increase your gem level of relevant skills by 1 and maybe even 2. Maximum life, attributes, and dot multiplier are your other priorities. A ring with increased maximum life, elemental resistances, attributes, and maybe the vulnerability curse on hit will meet all your needs. We recommend a vermilion ring. Proper jewels can make a big difference. Look for 1 life prefix and 3 other mods for more damage, preferably physical damage over time multiplier. We've used 3 physical damage Vluster jewels with notables as shown. It's the most efficient setup for more damage. 4 magic utility Flaks and 1 life flask that stops bleeding is the setup you should aim for. Granite flask for armor, quicksilver flask for movement speed, silver flask for the onslaught, and basalt flask for increased armor. These should increase your armor, movement speed, remove freeze, or increase your attack or cast speed with suffixes. Corrupting Fever is a buff that costs a lot of life, but luckily you only need to activate it once per map. It imbues your spells and attacks with the power to apply corrupting blood damaging debuff on hit, that is not bleeding. Use the anomalous version to lower the cost. Link it with Brutality, Efficacy, Empower, Swift Affliction, and Reap, which is also here in this setup. It's a spell that deals physical damage and dot. If you're using Poet's Pen, replace Reap with Life Tap. If you have Poet's Pen, socket in it Reap and Exsanguinate, linked to Brutality support. Exsanguinate, much like Reap, costs no mana, only life, and deals physical hit and dot damage that scales up with spell damage. Kinetic Blast is a wand attack that's used only to apply Corrupting Fever stacks on multiple enemies quickly. Link it with Greater Multiple Projectiles, level 1 Life Tap, and Maim support gems. If enemies are already maimed, use Life Gain on hit instead. With Pride on, enemies near you receive more physical damage. This effect is doubled after 4 seconds of continuous exposure. Malevolence grants more dot and increases skill effect duration. Use Determination for simply more and increased armor. Link them with Enlightened support. Molten Shell is a guard spell to mitigate incoming physical damage. It can absorb more of it the more armor you have. Enduring Cry is a war cry that regenerates your life and grants endurance charges. Flame Dash is a simple dash tool to quickly teleport from place to place. Link these 3 with level 1 Life Tap. You can use 1 banner for free. War Banner makes nearby enemies receive more physical damage, making it the best one. Blood Rage is an optional skill to generate frenzy charges and give you some life leech. It drains your life quickly, so be sure you have the means to recover it. If you still have some unreserved mana, use Herald of Purity for more physical damage. Vulnerability is the curse that makes enemies receive increased physical damage. It can be applied automatically via Corrupted Gloves implicit or ring affix. Killing all 3 bandits in Act 2 is the only sound solution to the Aramir's quest. The build is not suited to receive a lot of damage over time, so it may be a problem. To mitigate it, pick the Soul of Aracali as your major god. To regenerate life during undoubtedly long boss fights, we recommend Ryslitha as a minor god. It grants life flask charges and increases life recovery from them when low on life. The passive skill tree is built around getting increased maximum life, as we've allocated around 8 life clusters. It includes the ones with Tireless and Cannibalistic Rite to lower the life cost of skills. For more damage, pick Veteran Soldier and Vanquisher. For keystones, get the Resolute Technique and Iron Will. We've allocated all the maximum endurance charges as these were relatively close to your path, and with frequent uses of Enduring Cry, You will have them up constantly. Pick up the reservation clusters and 3 or 2 large jewel sockets. For masteries, get 50 extra life from life mastery, increased damage with skills that cost like from physical mastery, increased damage from each aura for reservation mastery, and increased endurance charges duration from charge mastery just to be sure they're permanent. That is all for this guide. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like if you found it informative. See you soon.